is I told some Bitcoiners that I know that I started my own thing and that I'm selling tallow bombs. They were like, when are you going to accept Bitcoin as a payment? Just do it. Even if you make mistakes, even if it's not perfect, even if it's not well written, just start. And then start telling your customers and your audience that you're accepting Bitcoin as a payment. I've tried other wallets, but so far, Muun is working out for me, right? So for me, it's it works perfectly. I've never had an issue with it. Why switch to something else? If you can't accept Bitcoin as a payment, do it. Because there are people who would spend their sats or their Bitcoin just for the sake of spending it and buying something they like with it. So if you're not accepting Bitcoin as a payment, you're actually leaving money on the table. Why? In the past 3 weeks, since I integrated Lightning, I've collected over 1 million sats. Okay? It's a bit more than that. I'm just going to say over 1 million sats.
Welcome to another episode of Stacking Sats, my new series devoted to sharing the stories of real people using Bitcoin products and services to stack sats. Today's episode features Margie Ramos, a Shopify merchant who has stacked over 1 million sats in just a few weeks for her line of tallow-based skincare products. Before we get into the episode, just a quick message from our sponsors. Today's show is sponsored by Voltage. Voltage is the premier provider of Bitcoin and Lightning node infrastructure. Today's show is also sponsored by Stackwork. Stackwork is a Lightning-powered transcription tool that takes the best of AI and humans to create better, faster, less expensive transcripts. Today's show is also sponsored by Nodeless. Nodeless makes it easy to accept Bitcoin payments in your store or website with instant and automatic withdrawals directly to your cold storage. To learn more about Voltage, Stackwork, and Nodeless, click the links in the description. Margie, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on. I am so excited to talk about how you're stacking sats with your business, Tallowed and Free. First, we have to get into Tallow. And this is a theme in the Bitcoin community. There's a lot of people who like cooking with tallow and using tallow in their lives. You have a business where you have Tallowed and Free offers like lotions and balms and lip balms and things like that, all based in tallow, using tallow. So I want to start by asking, why tallow? How did you first come up with this idea of selling these skincare products using tallow?
Well, first of all, thanks so much for having me on your show. I really appreciate that. So what happened was that I was always, I still am, always on Bitcoin Twitter. I use a pseudonym there. And I was just always seeing these people that I follow there, even the ones who are into carnivore diet, started talking about tallow. And I had no idea what tallow even meant. I've never heard of that word before until one day, one of my friends was like, oh, you should use tallow to moisturize your skin, because I was doing this lifestyle change. I wanted to stop using all these skincare products, personal products that have harmful chemicals. So then when he mentioned that, I was just like, okay, what is tallow? And then he told me that tallow actually means rendered beef fat. So I was like, okay, I am not gonna put beef fat on my skin. No way. That's just weird, and I don't want to smell like beef. But then I was just always seeing these Bitcoiners that I was following talking about tallow all of a sudden. And even Carnivore Aurelius, whom I follow on Twitter, started talking about that too. Or maybe they were always talking about it, but I just started noticing it last year, around this time last year. So then I looked into it. I saw all the really good benefits, and I learned that ancient cultures, ancient Egyptians, Greeks, Romans, were using tallow in their skincare routine. They were using it to moisturize their skin. They were using it as an ingredient in their soaps. So I was like, okay, well, there's something here. If everyone's talking about it and I'm suddenly learning about it, I was like, okay, let me order some tallow balms. And then I was just like, oh, it's a bit too expensive. So I was like, oh, maybe I'll just make it on my own. Because I was like, I can make this. So then I ordered some tallow from a local farm, and it's like grass fed and grass finished, meaning that it has a lot of nutrients, um, compared to like, like a beef tallow that isn't grass fed and grass finished. So then I made some and I was like, okay, it's not so bad. Then I was like, I can sell this. And then I just like started posting about like what I'm doing on my personal Instagram account. And then people were like, oh, what is that? Oh, I want to order. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to start selling this. You guys stay tuned. Like in a month, I'm going to have a website. And then sure enough, before I even had like a website to sell the tallow bombs, people are already started ordering. So I was like, okay, I have to keep going. I have to do this. Yeah.
Yeah. Was this the first time you had set up your own kind of like business? Was this the first kind of idea you had come up with where you'd gone, this is a cool product, I want it, and then followed up with, now that I have it, I can sell this to other people who might like it as well?
Yeah, it is like the first time, but like even when I was younger, I was like always into like business, and I've always felt like I am gonna have my own business or like small side business. So even like when I was like 8 years old, I grew up in the Philippines. Well, I didn't grow up there, but I spent like my first 10 years there, and I would be like, oh, let's make some fish balls and sell them, And it was just kind of like it was always ingrained in me to like sell things. And my profession, I'm a salesperson. Like I handle partnerships and I do business development for a tech company. So I feel like it was always in me to kind of like sell something to people. And it just like happened that like I found something that was like I became passionate about and that I really believed in and that people wanted to buy.
Yeah, that's very cool. Now, you said you first discovered Tallow through Bitcoin Twitter. So were you already had an understanding of Bitcoin and you were already into that Bitcoin ecosystem before understanding Tallow, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, I was like on Bitcoin Twitter for like 2 years, just trauma bonding with everyone else there who felt oppressed by like the central banks. And yeah, like so and like Bitcoiners, they always have like these interests that aren't so mainstream, right? Like the carnivore diet. Like even before like I learned about the carnivore diet, I was just like what is that? I'm like, why would people go on a strict carnivore diet? Like, don't you love like eating French fries? Like, don't you want to eat some chicken wings? And then I learned like what's wrong with like seed oils, right? So then that's when I was just like, okay, um, yeah, like there's a lot of smart people in that space, and I'm very open minded. I love learning, and so far everything that I'm learning makes a lot of sense. Especially everything I learned about tallow.
Right. Yeah, I think Bitcoin causes a lot of people to like we're rethinking money and then people go, well, now that we've rethought money and found all these things that are wrong with fiat money, I wonder if there's other things that are wrong with, you know, the skincare products we're all using or the food we're all eating or anything in our lives can be kind of, we can go down those rabbit holes and figure out. I think Bitcoiners have a tendency to try and go down those rabbit holes and figure out what are the things that are wrong with the way other things are done.
Exactly, and that's how it always is when you're yeah whenever you're talking to a Bitcoiner. This is always what happens. Like it doesn't matter whether it's like you're talking about like women men dynamics, whether you're talking about relationships or whether you're talking about just like something like so mundane, it always ends up to Bitcoin. It's so strange.
Yeah, yeah, it's a very interesting culture, but I think it uncovers a lot of new issues and it brings light to things that otherwise would have been overlooked. So I think that's on net a good thing. I want to talk more about Bitcoin, the role Bitcoin plays at Tallow and Free. So when you first started this business, you were a Bitcoiner, you were in this kind of Bitcoin circle, but you were not accepting Bitcoin, I don't believe, from day one, right?
No, it wasn't. But because I told some Bitcoiners that I know in person and on Twitter that I started my own thing and that I'm selling tallow bombs, they were like, when are you going to accept Bitcoin as a payment? It was like the first thing they would ask me. They're like, "How can I support you? And are you going to accept Bitcoin as a payment?" I was like, let me like learn how to set it up first, you know? So like I tried like, you know, integrating all these like crypto, Bitcoin, you know, applications on Shopify because I use Shopify. And it just didn't work. You know, I integrated crypto.com, like no one wanted to use that. And it makes a lot of sense. But I feel like I just got lazy and I was like, okay, well, my store is accepting Bitcoin as a payment. But like I took the easy like way to do that. So no one used it. No one was paying. You know, like people would like pay with fiat, even when I had like you know like that app integrated in my on my website. Like 3 months later after I launch the website, so I was just like, okay, well something is wrong. You know, like I have Bitcoiners ordering from me, but they don't want to use that, and they told me to. They're like, I don't want to use that. So then I was like, okay, I have to like think about this. And then 3 weeks ago, 3 weeks, yeah, 3 weeks ago, some Bitcoiner emailed me. I've never met this person, never interacted with this person, and he was just like, you know, you should like, why don't you accept Bitcoin using Lightning? And you can like put some documentations on your website, walking people through the steps on how to pay with Bitcoin using Lightning. And I was like, you know what? That is a smart idea. I thought about it before, but I was just like, who's gonna want to do all that? You know what I mean? Who wants to go through all that? But he said it, so I was like, okay, let me do this. It'll be up and running tonight. Like by tonight, you're gonna be able to pay me with Bitcoin using Lightning. And then I just like you know type a bunch of stuff, put the documentation on the website, and I sent him the link. I was like, okay, this is what you have to do to pay me with Bitcoin. Well, he disappeared for like a week. But between that 1 week, there's like two people that paid me with Lightning. And then he came back again. He was like, sorry, I got busy. Okay, well, you know, send me an invoice and I'll pay you. And then he did that. And then I had like another prominent like Bitcoiner from Europe who like reached out to me saying that she wants to pay, well, she wants to order and pay with Bitcoin using Lightning. So in the past 3 weeks, since I integrated Lightning, I've collected over 1 million sats. Okay. It's a bit more than that. I'm just going to say over 1 million sats.
Yeah, good for you. That's amazing. So I want to understand more about your first attempt at accepting Bitcoin using crypto.com. Why did people not want to use that? Was there a common criticism there?
Yeah. Well, like a lot of like people who orders or who followed me like on my other Twitter account, they're Bitcoin maximalists, right? And they just feel like these exchanges are like enabling people to keep their Bitcoin or their Sats on their exchanges. And yeah, so like they don't really like that, and they didn't like the setup too because what happened was that like, oh, if you have to go like on crypto.com to pay, then you have to create an account, then there's like the whole KYC now. And a lot of them, they don't really like to do that. They would rather just kind of like not have a third party involved. So I think like that's why it didn't work. But so far, paying with accepting Bitcoin as a payment using Lightning, and just like using a really simple processing, you know, payment system, right? Like I just tell them, okay, tell me what you want to order. I'll send you an invoice and just use that invoice to pay me. Like that is what's working.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you think there will be a native option on Shopify for accepting Lightning payments, like not having to do this workaround that you're doing right now, where you have to put the documentation, write it out on your site, have people go through this process? I imagine this crypto.com, the first implementation you had, that was that like a native Shopify plugin?
Yeah. Yeah. Like there was like other plugins too. There's like Strike, but like I applied and they just never got back to me. There's also Open Node, but that didn't work out for me either. So I think I just really need to like maybe look more into it because I'm not that technical, right? Like I'm your regular small business owner who is not technical at all, right? So I feel like maybe I should just really look more into it or get some help from fellow Bitcoiners to help me set up my, my my website properly so that it can accept Bitcoin as a payment using Lightning more seamlessly. But yeah, I just have to really like take my time and ask for help.
What was that process like of learning about the Lightning Network? Like when this friend reached out to you a few weeks ago, was this the first time you had heard of Lightning, or how, what was your understanding of Lightning then, and how did that evolve over the last few weeks?
So I attended BitBlock Boom in 2020, and I attended a Lightning workshop there. Yeah, so like like it's so crazy. I really just like went to that workshop because like one of my friends like in the space was like, let's go to that workshop. I'm like, okay, let's go. And it was like a really good one. And I think the person who was conducting the workshop was someone from Bitcoin Twitter too, that I follow, but I forgot his name. So I'm not just gonna say a random name and guess, but he did such a good job, like answering all my questions and really like making me understand how Lightning works. And so then I've been accepting, Bitcoin via Lightning since 2020, and I've had like some Bitcoiners too who would like send me tips using Lightning, and it's like so easy. And I've also like paid Bitcoiners that sell stuff using Lightning as well, like Ben Justman. You interviewed him recently, and yeah, I've ordered some bottles of wine from him, and we use Lightning. It was like so easy. It was really cool, and yeah.
That's amazing. Shout out Ben. Ben was on one of the earlier episodes of Stacking Sats.
Yeah, I actually have like his
Oh,
bottle.
you do? Peony Lane
Like
Wines.
yeah, I think like this is the thing too with Bitcoiners. Yeah, like this is the thing with Bitcoiners. I feel like we want to spend Bitcoin, like wherever, like they're accepting Bitcoin as a payment. Like like there's that whole like thing. I don't know what it is, but like even I do that too. Like if I know like someone is accepting Bitcoin as a payment, I'm like, okay, well I'm gonna pay with Bitcoin, especially if they're using Lightning, just because it's like much easier. Like I've ordered some stuff online too using Lightning, and I'm like, I don't want my credit card to know that like I bought this thing, or I don't want it to be on the record. Yeah, like that is like pretty cool.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of an altruistic kind of feedback loop going on, where if a Bitcoiner sees someone's accepting Lightning payments, they just kind of go out of their way to do it, even if it's not easier, right? Like someone could put in a credit card payment probably and get a, right now on your site, because you're doing this manually, this Lightning payment, it might actually take longer to process for you or for them, but they want to do it still. And it's really cool to see that they are doing it.
Exactly. And here's like, one of the things that I realized is that as a small business owner who's not technical at all, not tech savvy at all, like if you can accept Bitcoin as a payment, do it. Because there are people who would spend their sats or their Bitcoin just for the sake of spending it and buying something they like with it. So if you're not accepting Bitcoin as a payment, you're actually leaving money on the table. Why?
Yeah, that's a great point. And so you mentioned in just the last few weeks, you've already earned over 1 million sats by accepting Lightning payments. Do you get the sense that are these new customers? Is this like a net addition to your business, or is it existing customers that are just shifting to Lightning?
No, they're not existing customers. These are like Bitcoiners I've never interacted with before. And I was really surprised. That's why, I asked like some of them, I was like, how did you hear about Tallow and Free? Like some responded, some didn't. But one of them was like on Noster. I was like, really? People are talking about Tallow and Free on Noster. That is so cool. So that was like, okay, I'm gonna create a Noster account for Tallow and Free. And I'm just gonna like, shit post there.
You also mentioned that you accepted Lightning tips prior to starting Talent Free, right? How did you do that? Was that on Twitter, or
On Twitter, yeah.
and was this just for your content?
Actually no. So basically, like, I have like like a Twitter friend who was like, he ordered like a few times from me because he really liked the tallow bombs, and I guess he wanted to support me too. He was like, oh, like Margie, like I really want to like send you like some tips too. Can I do that via Lightning? I'm like, sure. Like that's so nice of you. Thank you. Yeah, but it was just like peer to peer, right? Like it's not like on Nostr. Like I still have to set that up on Nostr, but like yeah, I think it's just like really cool, how like people are like doing all these things, like paying with something that is like outside of like the system.
Right. Oh, okay. So these tips on Twitter were related to Tallow and free, but it was outside of the actual payment. People were just sending you extra money.
Exactly.
Got it. What's your strategy now for you got Tallow and free up and running? You have had some early success with Lightning payments. You've now had it up for a few weeks. What's your strategy now for growing this business? As you mentioned, a side business right now. Is this going to be your full-time business at some point? I'd love to hear more about your kind of roadmap here.
Yeah. So I'm like the kind of person who would just do it, right? Like I don't try to overthink things. I just, take one step at a time every day. But the overall goal is to really like actually make it like a bigger company. Like right now I have someone helping me create content because I can't just like, be on my phone all the time recording, and it's too much. So it's actually one of like my loyal customers. We started chatting on Instagram, and then eventually I was like, hey, you know what? I'm looking for someone who can help me with content creation to grow the brand and like to grow the audience. And she was like, sure, like I'll do it. And now like she's doing it for me. She creates one content every week, and she's doing such a good job. So I think like for me for now is to just kind of like establish a good and trusted brand. Like that's my goal for now. And also to increase sales and get the name more out there using Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and even Nostr.
So among those, you mentioned Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Nostr. What is your main channel for acquiring new customers today? Like, where are most people finding you?
Yeah, Twitter and Instagram. I actually ran a survey the other, not the other week, like last week, and people were like, "Yeah, we heard about you on like Twitter and Instagram, and also like word of mouth too, right? Like friends." But yeah, I think like Twitter helped a lot. Like I even like saw in my Shopify analytics that a lot of like I think it was like 4% of our sales came from Twitter.
Wow. Now, Twitter and Instagram, I believe they have kind of different demographics, right? Like, I hear a lot about Bitcoin Twitter. I participate in it. So do you. We're all in this kind of Bitcoin Twitter community. I don't know that there's a Bitcoin Instagram, or if there is, I haven't discovered it yet. Are you noticing that there's like different values and different beliefs and different kind of like ways of looking at the world when you look at your customers coming from Twitter versus those coming from Instagram?
Yeah. So what Twitter is really used, to talk about whatever you think, whatever comes to your mind and your belief systems. And the more like extreme you are, the more people are like going to follow you sometimes. So I feel like people are more themselves on Twitter, right? And they can, use pseudonyms, you can use fake profile pictures, but you're getting followers based on what you're saying. Whereas with Instagram, it's really more about image. And a lot of Bitcoiners are not there to kind of like promote how they look like, right? So, like Bitcoiners are really more about like, how they see the world and their belief systems, their ideologies, how they think the world should be. And a lot of them, like, they don't believe in the current food system that the government, mainstream media, health care are promoting. So yeah, like a lot of them are really more into like just eat real food, don't eat fake meat. And that is not something that would sell on Instagram, right? Like, Instagram is really more about like, how do I look like? Oh, do I look pretty? Do I look, perfect?
Right. So I guess if you're splitting up your targeting here, the Twitter stuff is more for like attracting Bitcoiners, and maybe the Instagram is more for attracting like the skincare side of things, where it is a skincare brand, and that is something that it's a visual interface, so it's a lot easier to showcase that on Instagram than it is on Twitter.
Exactly. Like I find like Twitter, like a lot of my customers are actually men too. It's so interesting, right? So like, yeah, when I'm on Twitter, it's really more about like, okay, I feel like my messaging is, I try to make it more towards men. And when it comes to Instagram, like I try to make the messaging more towards women because in Instagram, most of my followers are women.
I see. That's an interesting dynamic. I want to talk a little bit about the tools you're using to accept Lightning payments right now. So right now you have documentation on your site. You're going to generate a Lightning invoice for the customer once they put in their order. What are you using to do that?
Yeah, I'm using Muun Wallet.
Okay, interesting. And did you find that, was that the first one you found, or did you kind of like explore other wallets before? There's, maybe a handful, maybe a dozen or so wallets you could use in the Lightning space.
I've tried other wallets, but so far, like Muun is working out for me, right? So for me, it's like it works perfectly. I've never had an issue with it. Like, why switch to something else? I should probably try other ones too, but I'm like, this works for me. Like, I tried other ones, and I'm just like, oh, why am I complicating things? I have other things to think about. And I feel like this is what, like, a lot of Bitcoiners who want to promote Bitcoin to business owners to think about also. It's like, especially small business owners, like they have to think about their small business, right? Like they can't be like thinking about like how complicated this thing can be. So I think like, it's an opportunity also for um for industry leaders who want to maybe create services or products around supporting business owners to accept Bitcoin as a payment using Lightning. Like it needs to be like, when they're setting up their credit card, their POS, like they don't have to think about it. Someone's setting it up for them and they can just like focus more on their business. Because I feel like, if you have to think about like, oh, like how complicated it can be, how it works and all that stuff, like it can be overwhelming, especially when you don't even already know what Bitcoin is and why you should accept Bitcoin as a payment, right? Like it's a lot to go through, but then at the same time, I guess we're still early.
Yeah. Well, it's really promising to see that, Lightning is at the stage where you mentioned you're not technical, small business owner, you're not trying to devote all of your time to understand how to accept a payment. You just want something that works and you found it. And, in a few weeks, you've seen actual results from it. Whereas I think a few years ago, if you were to try this in 2020, I don't think you would have had that same success. I think it would have been a lot more complicated, and no one else would have been using it then. It's really promising to see that in those few years, we've made enough progress where small business owner can just step in, say, I want to accept Lightning payments, spin up a wallet, start sending out invoices, and boom, you're off to the races. Now, what other things can you think of that would make that process easier? Having gone through it yourself, are there any things that if you could speak to these, wallet developers or any of the businesses operating in Lightning, what would you say to them as like, I want this, give me this?
Yeah, just like a plugin that I just, that is easy to connect to, and then it'll give me analytics too. I think that would be cool, right? Because right now it's like I have to like track all that payment, manually. But like if I didn't have to do that and it would just like give me like a dashboard showing, okay, well, this is how many payments you've accepted so far. And it doesn't have to like say from like, which wallet it came from or, it should just like show me like how much like I've collected and yeah, I think that's enough. And then which products were purchased, right? Yeah, because I feel like I think like we should, I don't really want to also like dox all these people either. Like I feel like that's why they're using Lightning as well. Like some of them, they want to have like a bit more privacy.
And so right now you're having to categorize all your sales in two different ledgers, right? You have a Shopify analytics for all your fiat payments, and then you have to manually kind of keep track of all the Lightning payments and match them up to the correct orders, right?
Yep, exactly.
All right. I want to hear your advice now for Someone who is interested in starting a small business, maybe they're hearing your story now and going, I can do that. I can spin up my own business for selling ABC product or whatever it is. What advice do you give them to kind of get started and start accepting Bitcoin today? What's the first step?
Understand what Bitcoin is. That would be the first step. And if you already know what Bitcoin is, just do it. Just copy what I'm doing. Get a wallet and then create a documentation saying what people should do to pay with Bitcoin or Sats using Lightning. And yeah, just do it. Even if you make mistakes, even if it's not perfect, even if it's not well written, just start. And then start telling your customers and your audience that you're accepting Bitcoin as a payment. I put it on my bio on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok, right? It's on the website, it's on the headline, on the header. I'm really promoting it.
Yeah. I think there's a saying perfect is the enemy of good or something like that, where, as you said, it's okay that you make mistakes and you're kind of learning in the process of accepting payments, and it doesn't have to be perfect. And I think a lot of people recognize that in Lightning is we're still in the early stages of building out this protocol. We're still in the early stages of getting merchants to use it and to send payments. It's okay if there's mistakes. It's not the biggest deal in the world, and it shouldn't stop someone from making progress in their business and actually seeing real results, even if the implementation is not, perfectly seamless. So I think that's a really good message. Anything else that you would do differently if you were to start this again? So kind of backtrack about a month now, knowing what you know today. Would you be taking any different steps? Would you be being more aggressive on certain channels?
I would have definitely created more content at number one, because I wasn't really creating a lot of content in the beginning. I was more focused on product development, but I should have just been recording that too, right? And posting it on TikTok and on Twitter. Well, not Twitter, but TikTok and Instagram. But one thing that I feel I should have done earlier was accept Bitcoin as a payment using Lightning and having that documentation in place since day one. Yeah, and really listen. And I feel Bitcoiners are so opinionated, and they would and they like to give advice. So I should have taken some of those advices earlier on and just ask for help when I didn't know what to do.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, listen, thank you for taking the time to chat today. This has been really insightful. I'm glad to see you're building your business out, and Lightning is having a meaningful impact on your business. Before you go, where can folks go to learn more about you and Tallow and Free?
Yeah, they can just go on the website, Tallowed, TALLOWED, and free.com.
Perfect. Thanks so much for taking the time. Keep on stacking sats.
Thanks so much, Kevin. Likewise. Bye now.